What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. We're going to be talking about the 2008 film The Strangers. The film follows James and Kristen, who are on a bit of a rocky relationship right now. They go to a wedding reception, and when they come back to their isolated vacation home, they try to figure out if they're able to make their relationship work. However, that kind of goes a little bit sideways when three masked assailants come to visit them looking for somebody named Tamra, and these three masked assailants make their nights a little bit more worse than it already was. Over the past decades, we have gotten a lot of subgenres in the world of film. We've gotten the heist genre, the murder mystery subgenre, the paranormal subgenre, and one of my personal favorites is the home invasion genre. The reason why this is my favorite is because if you're able to do a home invasion movie correctly and make it very effective to the point where you don't even want to go out at night, to the point where you want to be able to sleep with the lights on, those are the most effective home invasion films, because something like this can happen to anybody. And when you have three murderous people with masks on with no clear sign of a motive is what makes it very effective. And while this movie isn't beloved by a lot of people, I do think this is one of the most underrated home invasion films just because of the whole unsettling factor that this movie has. The film is written and directed by Brian Bertino, and this movie is inspired by events that happened in his small town when he was younger. There would be a lot of different break-ins, and somebody one day knocked on his door asking for somebody that didn't live there or wasn't there. And so that kind of gave him the inspiration for this movie. For some reason, I am so obsessed with this movie. Every single time that we come around to the Halloween season, I, for some reason, always go back to this movie just because of how effective this movie is. It's not going to be for everybody, and the Rotten Tomato scores do prove that. But I do think that this movie has so much going for it. While this is more of a slow burn type of film, and for some people, if you are not really big on the way that this movie is presented, this movie is not going to work for you. But what makes this movie really effective is just the way that everything is built and constructed, because this movie is not relying on a lot of bloody violence or a lot of gore. It really does mostly rely on the tension and a lot of the jump scares that we have in this movie. Some are warranted and some are just false jump scares, but I do love the way that the tension was able to build. There aren't a lot of movies nowadays where I am feeling like I am scared, and this is one of those movies. When I watched it for the first time when it first came out, I really wasn't scared of this movie. Maybe it was because I watched it during the day and that probably had an effect on me. Then one day I watched it on Stars at night, and boy did this movie creep me the fuck out. The thing that makes this movie really effective is the three killers. While I do love the design of these killers, they just feel like everyday normal people just with some creepy mask on, and the fact that they made the creative choice of not showing their faces so you can leave it to your imagination of what they look like is one of the most creative choices that I really like. It really does heighten the fear that you have. Your home is supposed to be your safe haven, and while yeah, you can make an argument that the paranormal subgenre is one of the most scariest of the subgenres that we've gotten, because there's something scary about a ghost just watching you, something that you can't see just watching you in your everyday house doing whatever you're doing. That is one of the most scariest and most invasive thing that happens. But when you have something like The Strangers, where they don't really have a motive, they're just fucking around with you and making and just scaring the living hell out of you, so that when they're ready to attack you at any single time, but the fact that they are able to play with them is what makes this movie really all that more effective. And the performance that we have here, a lot of this movie is hinged on Liv Tyler's performance, and she actually crushes it. While you do get Scott Speedman as her boyfriend slash fiance or soon to be fiance, he does have a lot of the heavy lifting in this movie, and the way that these two work together I thought was great. But a lot of the movie is mostly reliant on Liv Tyler's performance, and from all the things that I've read, she went full Daniel Day-Lewis for this movie. She really didn't want to know where the loud bang was going to be coming from, so you had crew members just banging on different directions so that she thought it was going to be coming from one direction. In reality, it was coming from a different side. The performance in here is the best that I've seen, because she has to captivate a lot of fear, a lot of emotions when everything is going down. It also puts you in their shoes so that if something like this was happening to you, what would you do? Especially if you don't have any kind of communication. There's no way out. You're basically stuck in the middle of nowhere where you're probably miles away from the nearest city. It's that tension that builds throughout the entire film that makes it really all that more effective. If I was put in this situation, I would have no idea what I would do, because while on one side you can run for miles and miles and miles, but they're going to be able to catch up to you one way or another. Just the way that this movie begins, where you have the Mormon boys at the beginning of the film calling 911 to report what they saw, is a really nice way of setting the stage. And the way that this movie ends with one of the most chilling lines in any horror film, still to this day, is something that I have never been able to get out of my head, because it is just so chilling the way it's delivered, the way it's presented, and on face value, I can see why some people would think that is one of the most stupidest lines of all time. But when you really think about it and you start contemplating on everything that happens in the entire film, it makes sense. Because if I'm home alone, I will turn off the lights and make sure nobody's home, so that way nobody can come and terrorize the living hell out of me. But overall, this is a movie that I think is effective enough in what it's trying to do, and it's a fun little horror film to pass the time. Is it one of the greatest films of all time? Absolutely not, but it is one of the most underrated films of all time. I do think there are more effective things in this film that make it feel creepy. The fact that this movie is just relying on a lot of the tension that is missing from the second film, which we're going to be talking about later. It has the makings of a fun home invasion film that, if you are somebody that is a homeowner, this is going to be one of those films that just stays in your head for a long time, because it really can happen to anybody. It can happen to me. It can happen to you. I'm praying it doesn't happen to anybody. But those are my thoughts on The Strangers. Let me know down in the comments if this is a movie that you just absolutely hate, or if you're on my boat where you feel like this is one of the most underrated films of all time. Drop those thoughts in the comments below, and we'll catch you guys for the next video.